morning. Welcome at Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. The first topic of today's briefing is presentation of the education campaign on the risk of mines and unexploded ordinance. We have Mr. Pavlo Polyanskyy, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, Hryhoriy Marchenko, Director of Emergency Response Department of State Emergency Service of Ukraine, and Ms. Giovanna Barberis, UNICEF representative in Ukraine.
At Ukraine Crisis Media Center today is the launch of an education campaign on the risks of mines and unexploded ordnance. Pavlo Polyanskyy, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine with us, Mr. Hryhoriy Marchenko, Director of Emergency Response Department of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, and Ms. Giovanna Barberis, UNICEF representative in Ukraine. Welcome.
Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. As the topic today is related to children and to making them safe and secure from exploded ordnance. I can give you some information about the beginning of the educational year. The first lesson today is named Ukraine is the United Country, and this process has started successfully in all the educational establishments in the primary schools, secondary schools, high schools, and so on. When we are talking about different subjects, education, medicine, culture, we are touching upon the issue of occupation of Crimea and Sevastopol, and about the state of war in two regions, Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, as of 11 o'clock today. The educational process started in 250 schools of Lugansk region, and today 46.3 thousand school children went to school, and almost 5,000 of school children went to the first grade in Lugansk region. In Donetsk region today, 547 schools started the educational year, 157,000 students, and 17,000 of children went to the first grade. This is quite an important issue which is related to the topic of our briefing, and that's beginning of the educational year and everything that's connected with the issues with the places which are temporarily occupied by Russians, and according to the resolution of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, in the settlements where the military actions are being held or which are not under the control of Ukrainian authorities, the educational year is not starting. We now believe that it will start on the 1st of October, but that is just the approximate date because it all depends on the development of the situation in these two regions. And also I would like to mention that there is information that the leaders of terrorist groups of Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics stated before the 1st of September that they will start in inverted commas, their own educational year in the cities and settlements which are occupied by them. We provide explanation about that. No educational process in the settlements which are not controlled by Ukrainian authorities, which are occupied or where the military actions are being held, cannot start. We also warn our colleagues who before the beginning of the educational year were calling and asking whether we need to go to work, how will we be paid for our work. We gave explanation that they shouldn't go to work, they shouldn't start lessons, and of course we cannot pay for such type of activities because that also means certain legal consequences. And first of all, I would like to thank, I will do that several times probably, I would like to thank UNICEF and our colleagues from the State Emergency Service of Ukraine that for starting from July, we have conducted a very, very intensive work without any bureaucracy, the work on preserving life and health of children and also adults. The Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine believes that the most important thing in the situation of war, which is being carried out in Ukraine, is the date of the beginning of the educational year. It's not the most important thing when the educational year starts, but what is important is to have all children, all school children, all teachers to remain safe and sound. And we managed to finish the preliminary educational year. Not a single child was wounded, not a single child was killed. The tragic events that happened with the children, that was in the period of summer holidays when parents were responsible for children. But the echo of that war, we all wanted to finish as soon as possible and successfully. And this will last not the echo will last not for 1 week or 1 month or a year. Now we're entering the phase in which we had in Ukraine after 1945. That's consequences after war, the mines and the unexploded ordinance. And my colleague is the specialist on that, but every time the specialists deal with self-made explosives of some original design which do not fall upon any classification, and in every case they require individual approach. Also, we have very specific and practical results, and I would like to request my colleagues to say a few words about that so that they characterize these new videos which have been made for both children and adults. We also have developed some promotion materials, and these are booklets and leaflets which will be disseminated in both Ukrainian and Russian languages according to the request from local people on the territory of Lugansk and Donetsk regions. And that is quite a comprehensive approach to the methodological recommendations which were made public back in July by the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, so that the teachers and adults explain to people how dangerous could be attractive but unknown objects which could be found anywhere. And also an important component of that program is psychological work, psychological rehabilitation of those children who have witnessed, who have become the participants of some battle, of some fighting, and they have become victims of violence. And we are starting the campaign on providing psychological assistance to these young people. Basically, with that, I would like to finish, and I would like to give the floor to my colleagues.
Mr. Marchenko. Thank you. I am the Director of Emergency Response Department of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, General Hryhoriy Marchenko, and the engineering units that are engaged in diffusing bombs in the Donetsk region are the responsibility of my department. Our priority now is Donetsk and Lugansk regions. They are, apart from 30 personnel that we have constantly in those regions, we have involved 150 more specialists, 23 groups, and 40 units of special machinery and equipment. Working according to a plan, we started to work on the 6th of July together with the Ministry of Education. First of all, after the engineering works of the armed forces work, who demine highways and other routes of the movement of our forces, our groups are searching the territory. So since the 6th of July, our specialists diffused 16,600 explosive devices across the entire territory. We are searching all around the place, the infrastructure, first of all, administrative buildings, and first of all, we pay attention to provide the preparation of school and preschool educational establishments to the new academic year. So out of those 16,600 diffused units of ammunition and explosive devices, we found 400 explosive devices that were especially planted in order to kill people. Those are, some of them are remote controlled, some of them are very intricate, and they can't be diffused. They have to be blown up where they are situated, and those mines are planted not only on bridges or plants. Most of them we found in schools, kindergartens, parks. Some of them were disguised as children's toys. So the aim, obviously, was to inflict maximum damage and kill as many people as possible. And they counted on children picking up those disguised mines and booby traps. And this is done by pro-Russian forces in Ukraine and Russian forces. No one says this, but as far as explosive devices are concerned, this is the violation of all moral norms and so on. Our pyrotechnicians have searched 100 schools in Donetsk region and 60 schools in Lugansk region. In many of them, and the territories adjacent to schools and also on school premises, we found explosive devices. Luckily, due to active actions and the cooperation that we have with international organizations, due to their support, and I am very grateful for the active work of mass media, we had the priority, and we practically managed to avoid the death of children in liberated, I emphasize liberated districts, from explosions. Besides, we have detected landmines that are banned by the international law, also anti-tank missiles, mines, and very powerful mines that were planted in order to inflict maximum damage and cause great losses. The State Emergency Service is cooperating closely with international organizations, first of all OSCE, but we also work with the UN, and we have a number of programs. It happened so that we liquidated the ordnance depots on the territory of Ukraine. but some ordnance and ammunition were scattered around the territory of those depots. It was very hard to limit the access of the public to those territories, but because we cooperated with international organizations, mass media, and actively educated kids in schools and preschool establishments, we were able to minimize losses among casualties among people caused by explosive devices. We played 20. We created and showed a film, Dangerous Find. I see also some posters here that were recommended to us by the UN, and we were disseminating them in educational establishments and in some places where explosive devices could be found. So you can see how they explain what you should do if you find an explosive device or a suspect parcel. This is one of the important priorities of the work of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. I must tell you that even without the war, I mean this war, as a result of 2 world wars that happened on the territory of Ukraine and long uncontrolled military action, our pyrotechnicians, apart from the storages of ammunition, we found on average 100,000 explosive objects every year on average. We have a special program that provides for the liquidation of explosive devices. We have 34 military testing grounds that do not function as military testing grounds anymore. They are under control of local self-government bodies, but they were not cleaned of explosive devices. And the aggregate the aggregate territory of those grounds is 150,000 hectares. So now most of our pyrotechnicians are in Lugansk and Donetsk region, so we have suspended this program. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are limited in time now. Please stay for some questions, but now we invite Mrs. Barberis.
I'm too small. Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. Last week, I visited the schools in Slavyansk, and I have witnessed the huge efforts that the authorities are putting together in order to rebuild and renovate schools. I was very impressed by the resilience of the school staff and their dedication to ensure that schools are ready to successfully start the new academic year. We do have, however, a number of challenges, of course. As families are coming back to post-conflict areas in Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts, life and health of children are at risk due to the absence of any knowledge and experience in safe behavior among parents and children in the territories with mines and explosives. At UNICEF, we believe that it is our obligation to ensure safety and security of all school-age children and their parents in and around learning spaces and schools. We aim to do this by increasing their awareness and knowledge on risks from unexploded objects and mines. As part of this first phase of the Mine Risk Education campaign, we are supporting the Ministry of Education in providing an information package to each school, which includes a poster and a leaflet for children, which you are able to see here on the screen, and leaflets for parents and caregivers, and a cartoon for children that will facilitate their understanding on the risk. We are planning to outreach over 500,000 children and 200,000 parents in both Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts and about 2,000 schools. The materials will be disseminated through teachers and through the state emergency service officers working locally in the liberated areas. No child should suffer the consequences of this armed conflict. I would like finally to thank the Ministry of Education and Science and the State Emergency Service of Ukraine for the efforts in preparing for the 1st of September in the areas affected by the conflict and for ensuring the right to education of internally displaced children all over Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Дякуємо дуже. Can we ask you to stay for a few questions, if possible, Mr. Barberis? Yes? Пане Полянський і пане Харченко, ви можете приєднатися, щоб вам можна було...
Like to request you to stay here.
From the journalists. Please let us know raise your hand if you have any questions to our speakers. Just a sec.
First Business TV channel. My question is to Pavlo Polyanskyy. How many schools in Donbass are closed now, which will be open on the 1st of October? About 900.
Any more clarifying questions? Є запитання?
Any questions?
Much for your information. It was extremely... Oh, there is one more. Спільно ТВ.
Олексій Спільнотів.
Alexei Spilna TV. My question is to Mr. Marchenko. Could you please tell, we know that when the diffusers are working, they take photographs of what they find. Can you give the photographs of these things when you said that the mines were disguised as toys? You can ask the emergency situation service about that, and we will provide such documents. There are many of such materials about all these different unexploded ordinance. Any other questions?
Дуже дякуємо за інформацію, яку ви поділилися з нами сьогодні.
The next briefing will be at 12:30. Colonel Lysenko will be here exactly at 12:30.